What's up, everyone? I'm Canoe. Hi, that's my introduction. I know it technically says like ghost on the end of my YouTube handle. But just assume that's silent, I guess. That's canon now. Don't say the ghost part, it's just Canoe. I'm someone who's been drawing for a while. And like anyone else who wants to get better at their own art, I've had favorite artists of mine that I follow on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever. But it wasn't until recently that I really started paying more attention to the artists that I follow. This might coincide with the fact that I've started like a newer art journey where I'm trying to get better at rendering and colors and whatnot. Disgusting, I know. This really isn't important. Let me move this forward. In the pursuit of increasing my skill set and broadening my horizons when it comes to art, I really think it's important to just sit down and really highlight the artists that I want to learn from, as well as the ones who have inspired me over the years. And guess what? That's what the video's about, so there you go. Obviously, having a specific set of favorite artists who have a style that you want to emulate in some capacity isn't unique. Everyone does this. It's a very legitimate way of expanding upon your own art style by studying and taking in visual elements from other person's works. Usually it's because the style is genuinely appealing to you. It's not just a matter of using someone else's work as a stepping stool, but as a very real appreciation for the time and effort they've gone through to reach the level they're at. And for you, the person viewing the work, it's almost like a nod or a form of respect for what they've achieved because it's something you want to work hard to achieve as well. And personally, I have a lot of artists that I study, artists that I admire. I'll put like a couple on screen if I can, but obviously I won't be able to include all of them. Now, for me, for the purposes of this video, I want to focus on one that's taken the forefront in terms of an artistic style I'd like to learn from. Who am I going to be learning from, you ask? Well, it's in the title of the video. Stop being weird. You know who it is. I wrote it down there so you would know. It's none other than drumroll or the SpongeBob that meme. Likelihood art. That's who it is. If you've spent literally any amount of time on Instagram, and I mean that literally, you would know who she is. She needs no introduction. But I'm going to give one anyway. She has 350,000 followers on Insta. She's 23. That's way younger than what I thought. Oh my god, only a level 23? Impressive. And if you just... Hold on. If you just take a look, okay, at her Instagram, you just scroll through these, it gets insane. Like, what is this? This is just a sketch. Right, this is just a sketch. But the coloring, the stylization, oh my god, what brush does she use? I shouldn't ask that. That's got to be one of the most annoying questions to ever ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What brush do you use? It's so clean. It's so... Oh, wow, dude. Wow, dude. What do I even... I think all I had to do was just show the pictures instead of, like, try to give her resume or something. This is like, yeah, that's insane. That's crazy. And again, it's just like a hint of realism, right? It's just a touch, just a minor slap of the ass cheek of realism, right? Insane. This is so cool, man. Especially her hair. I like the way that she does hair. Yeah, I'll let you look through this if you need to, but you get the gist. You understand. We are now faced with the horrific truth that before we even begin trying to draw anything, we have to first try to understand her style. What is she doing exactly? What is her step-by-step process? Are there any specific techniques she frequently uses that we can analyze? Why am I raising my voice? I need to calm down. Well, worry not, my cultist followers, for I have broken down what I think are the most relevant aspects of her style that I will try to integrate into my own. Oh my gosh. Oh, dude. Whoa. Oh, this is neat. I wish I could just color pick this right now. It's too much. I can't do this. I can't do this. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I can't do any of this. Can I even get close? I'm sure there's some things. There's some things I could do. I don't even draw noses like that. Uh-oh. We got a nipple. Cover the... Oh, she's got jokes too, huh? Damn, dude. When was the last time she posted, even? No, that was... Wait, really? That might have been it. December 31st was the last time she posted. And a sketch. Oh, shit! Oh, you can kind of see how she proportions her faces. And she drew a baby. Because why not? Why wouldn't you just do that, you know? As a quick note here before I get into my analysis, since most of Likelihood's art is focused mainly on character heads and facial expressions, most of my analysis will be dedicated to this aspect of her art as well. Of course, if you take a look at her body anatomy, she's amazing at that as well, and her stylized treatment of clothing and fabric is freaking eye candy and deserves its own video. I'll have to stick with her facial rendering techniques for now. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Upon reviewing her works that are available for viewing on Instagram, I noticed a lot of tendencies she has when rendering the face. I went ahead and drew a quick diagram that I believe roughly captures the structure of the rendering practice she commonly uses. Here it is. Now, don't be too overwhelmed or think this is super complex. I assure you, once I explain it in a bit more detail and give some examples, they'll make way more sense. Her style typically consists of using harder brushstrokes in what I would call boxes of color almost. She will literally create zones of hue differences with her brushstrokes on a particular part of the face. And this hopefully makes the diagram even more straightforward because I formed these colored regions to parallel the way she will typically paint anyway. Starting with the lighter blue zones, these are meant to be the areas that are slightly darker than the base color. Think a form of light shading, if you will. They're typically places she will darken in order to provide a sense of shape for the face. Beginning with the upper cheek, or the area just below the eye, we can see that these are zones that aren't just darker, but also have tints of saturation in them. For human skin, this would usually make the area more red, orange, or generally warmer in color. Next, we have the bottom of the cheek, or the light blue zones that run down the sides of her face. These, while not necessarily being more saturated, are almost always softly blended into the more central regions of the face. And this is interesting because she doesn't seem to blend colors very often in this manner. Usually she'll keep her brushstrokes in those boxes I mentioned earlier. And lastly, we have either side of the forehead. This is presumably to show the curve of the human head through the use of value change. I've seen her keep this region in those boxes, but I've also seen her blend them as well, so it can truly go either way, I think. Next up is actually how she does highlights, or lighter portions of the face. With this diagram, we can see that she'll typically highlight three main areas, usually on both sides of the face, these being the forehead, often represented with a large box in the upper area of the face. It can change which side it's on depending on the location of the light source. Then we have the crease near the corner of the eye. It's not as large as the forehead, so we should be careful to not add too much. Next up is the linear streak that seems to run diagonally down or up the cheek. This one, while being used to show the curve and structure of the cheek, doesn't appear all the time in her works, but it's consistently there enough to consider it an aspect of her style. And lastly, there are these small little ticks just at the corner of the outer nostrils. These can either be blended or left as a hard color indication. One thing to note about all of these highlights, though, is that they should never be too light. Rather, they should only deviate slightly in value from the base color. This is to make sure that you don't over-contrast the face with bright details. Thirdly, the darkest areas of the face. These ones are pretty straightforward. They're just the parts of the face that tend to cast the most shadow, and therefore tend to be darker in value. These are the concave areas just above the eye, the drop shadow region just below the nose, and a small zone under the lower lip to insinuate that these areas are jutting outward from the face or coming inward below a protrusion. Now, if you're interested, I added this last diagram for any additional details that she may or may not include in some of her renders. The top green ticks just above and below the eyebrow are usually highlights that she adds almost for an additional flair. However, they both may not be included on a character. Rather, she may opt to only add these to one side of the face. Again, she won't use these all the time, but they're still nevertheless elements that I've noticed. Another detail here are these almost triangular zones that appear bordering the bridge of the nose and spreading outwards to the cheek. This zone is unique because it can either be a placeholder for a lighter color, a darker color, or a more saturated color, and the only distinction between which ones are used depends on the location of the light source, perhaps. Also, she'll sometimes add a literal border around this zone in her line art, which I find quite interesting, actually. Okay, now that we've done a quick rundown of the basics of her style, and have identified some key elements that makes her art super unique, we'll now get into the coup de grace. Is that French? I think that's French. I'm bilingual now, yeah. I'll finally be starting my speed paint with the intention of incorporating the elements I've discussed so far. Fun fact, this video was initially just meant to be me drawing in her style. Like the whole video was supposed to be a speed paint with my dumbass talking in the background. But no, I thought, let me make this video as complicated and drawn out as possible. I literally drew freaking schematics. That's how far this video concept got away from me. But anyway, the speed paint awaits us, so let's get into it. Ka-chow! I don't know what else to say. What do you say before getting into like a speed paint? Here we go! No, bye. Alright, and here we are, the finished drawing. If any of you are wondering why I didn't add any details to the hair, it's primarily because the things I was analyzing and looking at were centered around the way Likelihood Art stylizes her faces. Of course, I can always do another video on how she draws her hair if it comes to it, but I've just personally really found her faces to be extremely appealing to look at, and I wanted to see if there was a way to break down the style. I'm pretty glad with how the speed paint turned out. Of course, once again, it's not a full body, and it definitely isn't to the level of Likelihood Art's works, but it did the trick for allowing me to understand what she does in her process and everything. I tried my best to adhere to the diagrams that I showed in the order that I showed them for the sake of clarity. I'll also include just a quick comparison here with my finished sketch so you can see just a straightforward example of how I applied these principles. And that's pretty much it for this video. This is kind of fun, actually. Granted, if I make more long-form videos like this, they won't all be as complicated and probably won't go into nearly as much depth as this one, but I'll still try my best to keep things interesting and structured. I do strongly recommend to all of you who enjoyed the video to go and support Likelihood Art as well. I think she primarily uses Instagram, but she also has a YouTube channel you can check out. It's pretty cool. She shows her step-by-step process for drawing and whatnot, so please show her some love. I'll put links to her profiles and stuff in the description. Also, subscribe to me, I guess. I'm sort of a cool guy. I draw, I rant, I talk about things that interest me, and they're not always going to be art related, but that is what the majority of my long-form content will probably revolve around. I'm mainly known for my cartoon shorts on YouTube, I guess, but I really like the format of the speed paint commentary video YouTube channel style, so I'll probably stick with it. Who knows? Thank you all so much for watching this video. I actually had a great time making it. Stay safe, please, and have a great day. Ka-chow! I did it again. Bye.